So you're building on AWS, right? That means you're using its virtual hard drive, Amazon EBS. But here's the thing. There are 6 different types, and that means there's a really good chance you're either paying too much or worse, your app is slower than it needs to be. So in the next few minutes, we're going to fix that.
Okay, so what is EBS, really? At its heart, the idea is just super simple. Think of it exactly like the hard drive in your computer, except it lives in the cloud and it's attached to your cloud server. What that means is your data stays put. Even if you shut down your server, restart it, whatever, the data is still there. It's persistent, and trust me, that is a huge, huge deal. But this is where it gets tricky, and honestly, it's where a lot of people get tripped up. AWS gives you this whole menu of storage options, right? And if you pick the wrong one, you're either going to choke your app's performance or you're going to get a bill that makes your eyes water. So, yeah, let's make sure you get this right. All right, so to cut through the confusion with all 6 types, let's just split them into 2 big families. This is your very first and probably most important decision. It all comes down to one question. Do you need speed or do you need cheap bulk storage? Your answer is going to point you toward either an SSD, a solid-state drive, or an HDD, a hard disk drive. And this is really the fundamental trade-off. SSDs, they're all about IOPS. That's input-output operations per second. The best way to think of them is like sprinters. They're amazing at handling thousands of little, tiny, random requests super fast, perfect for something like a database. HDDs, though, they're the marathon runners. They're built for throughput. We're talking megabytes per second. They are fantastic when you need to read or write enormous chunks of data all at once. Like when you're chewing through massive log files. Okay, let's start by going down the SSD path. Honestly, this is where most modern applications are going to live. These are the drives you pick when you care about your app feeling snappy and responsive.
Look, if you only remember one thing from this whole explainer, make it this: GP3. Seriously, for almost everything you're going to build today, GP3 is where you start, and it's probably where you'll finish too. It's the new standard for a really, really good reason.
So why is it so good? It really boils down to 3 things. First, you get a really nice baseline of 3,000 IOPS right out of the gate for free. Second, and this is the absolute game changer, its performance has nothing to do with its size. You don't have to buy a massive, expensive disk just to make it go fast anymore. And third, it's almost always cheaper than the old version, GP2. I mean, it's a total win-win-win. And let me just show you what that decoupling really means in practice. With the old GP2 type, if you wanted 3,000 IOPS, you had to pay for a huge 1 terabyte volume. It was the only way. But with GP3, you get that same exact performance right out of the box, even if your drive is just a tiny 1 gigabyte. I mean, that one change alone saved people a ton of money.
Okay, but what happens when good enough isn't actually good enough? What about those apps that absolutely, positively cannot fail and need crazy high performance? Well, for that, you need the Rolls-Royce of EBS volumes. That's the IO2 family. This is the top-of-the-line option for your most mission-critical stuff.
And the headline feature here is this crazy number, 99.999% durability. People call it 5 nines. So what does that mean? It means AWS designed this thing to have a data loss rate of just 0.001% per year. It's built for those massive production databases where you can't even think about losing a single transaction. Yeah, you're going to pay a premium for it, but when you need that kind of reliability, it's pretty much the only game in town.
All right, let's totally switch gears now and look at the other side of our decision tree, the HDDs. Think of these as the workhorses. They're designed for those times when you're just dealing with huge amounts of data, and your number one concern is the cost for every gigabyte you store.
Now, with HDDs, the choice really comes down to how often you need to access the data. If you need to scan terabytes of data pretty often, like for big data processing, you're going to want ST1. It's optimized for that high throughput. But if you're just archiving data that you might not even look at for months, then SC1, that's the cold HDD, is your go-to. It'll give you the absolute lowest price for storage, period.
So, theory is great and all, but let's bring this back down to earth. How do you actually map these different volume types to the stuff you're building in the real world? Let's get practical. Okay, this slide right here, this is basically your cheat sheet. You need a boot volume for your server? Use GP3. Simple. Running a monster production database? You should be looking at IO2. Chewing through logs? ST1 is your best friend. For all your dev and test environments, GP3 is going to hit that perfect sweet spot of price and performance. And for those backups that just sit there, SC1, it's the cheapest way to go. And this chart, this really drives home that cost versus performance trade-off. Just look at SC1 on the left. It's incredibly cheap. We're talking a little over a penny per gigabyte. Then as you move up to ST1 and then to GP3, yeah, the price goes up, but so does the performance. The cost really does reflect the value you're getting out of it.
All right, so we figured out how to match the right performance to your workload. But picking the type of storage is really only half the story. The other half is all the cool stuff EBS lets you do with that storage. I like to think of them as the EBS superpowers.
So let's break these down. First up is persistence. That just means your data is safe. It lives separately from your server. Then there's elasticity. And this is where the real magic happens. You can change the size or even the type of your volume. Like you could upgrade from a GP3 to an IO2 while your app is still running with absolutely zero downtime. It's amazing. And finally, availability. This means your data is automatically copied within one geographic area, so it's protected if a single piece of hardware fails.
So, when you really get down to it, choosing the right EBS volume isn't just about picking some virtual hard drive. It's about building your application on a foundation that's optimized for cost, that's resilient to failure, and that's just incredibly flexible. So now, your data is safe, your performance is solid, and you can change things up whenever you need to. The only question left is, what are you going to build next?